Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of the ADH Dads, where I'm your host, CJ.
Hey, I'm JJ.
And I'm very colorful today, man. I was feeling nostalgic for my cruise shirt on Hawaiian Day, so I got this shirt for that. So I'm wearing it today behind my new colorful brick background. On the other side, we have Ritz's nail supply over here. She's doing my nail fee life, so we're a dual home officing right now with COVID. So, you got to make it work and support your spouse. So, guys, if you're looking for something to get your missus, your little ladies, your beautiful wife, tell them to check out My Nail Fee Life. She's got great nail designs on there. She sells nail polish. We get a little bit of a commission, but it's good stuff, man. You got to check it out because I know your girls are going to fall in love with what my wife does over here. So if you're looking for, like I said, a little bit of anniversary gift or just a little something gift, get some nail polish. Telling you, you can't go wrong with nail polish for your wife, right?
Let me just say I'll keep that in mind because one time Cohen and I we were shopping at Target and he says I want to get some nail polish. I was like, okay.
Should have called Ritz, brother.
Yeah, and we got silver and we got red, and he's like, I want to paint them red. I'm like, all right, buddy, let's do it. That sounds fine to me, So he was going to school with these red fingernails. I've never painted fingernails in my life, so I'm sure I could have used a little bit of help there, and gone to her Instagram.
My wife may beg to differ, but my nail painting skills have gotten tremendously good, okay? With two little girls always asking when they're home alone with me, that's how we kill the hours, brother, is painting glitter nails.
Oh man, making some special creations. Like, haven't you been to Disney before and you Disneyfied your your girls' nails? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did some Mickey Mouse ears on their nails for Disney. So I'm getting better.
Cool, buddy.
They look cool. More like Mickey Mouse ears every time and not just polka dots. So
well, what a great way to help as a dad. I'm sure that they really look up to you and find this great opportunity to, even in nail painting, like, hey Dad, I need some help. I can't do this on my own. Can you please help put something together? And then here's your creative mind, going at 100 miles an hour, coming up with ideas to make it special for them.
Oh yeah, we get the bathrobes out and we get some warm towels that we put in the dryer and warm up, and we make a whole thing of it, man. It's a lot of fun. So and they really like it because Mama does it and they get to practice on my nails, because Mama's nails are real estate. She's got to put these brands on. She's got to do these designs. It's like a canvas, a blank canvas, and it's expensive. So I'm the practice canvas until they start going to nail tech school, I guess.
When we were visiting you guys, I remember the kids wanted to draw tattoos on our skin. So we had our arms and legs like full of it. It was just washable marker, but
I still break out in hives.
Yeah, I just love that they had such energy to put stuff on us and show their creativity and that we're comfortable enough in our own skin to say, yeah, let's do this.
Oh yeah. So how you doing, brother? What are we talking about today?
Yeah, well, yeah, just behind the scenes quick, you said you have COVID. For our listeners, sometimes we're able to get a couple of episodes recorded in 1 week. So Colton and his wife are not in like week 4 of COVID.
Yeah, I guess we should make that clear, right? Since I'm home and there's nothing to do and the kids are out of the house as we're quarantining, we're trying to get these episodes in. So if I'm still sounding like this and you've been listening for like 2 months now, that's why.
Yeah, you haven't gotten to the point of being totally sick of Uber Eats chicken noodle soup or something, right?
We are getting tired of chicken noodle soup, that's for sure. But listen, this is the second time I got COVID. Never mind, it's too much sharing. I can't keep anything down right now, JJ. That's the worst part about this.
Well, can I ask you a little bit about your COVID experience? what does it look like when you are, I mean, most people probably listening to this have actually had COVID. And when you actually get hit by something like that, especially in the early stages of COVID, it was basically
Mm,
like nobody come near you. You must be stuck inside for so long. And then let's say it hits you and you need something. You obviously have to somehow get some help somewhere, right? You have to ask
yeah.
for help. But how does somebody do that? Should we talk about asking for help today, you think? Or
Yeah, brother. Let's talk about asking for help. I wish you could have helped me over these last couple of weeks,
Oh, me
man.
too. Me too.
We could have used somebody because when you're both down, and you can't lean on the other one to ask for help or get you the water. We were just so pathetic on the couch,
Mm,
reaching, and not able to get the water to us or get out from under the covers. It was just
yeah.
pathetic, man.
Well, I mean, we've probably heard somebody say it, or we've said it ourselves a number of times, that you'd do anything for the people you love, right? And what's fascinating about that statement is a lot of those same people will say, I'd do anything for this person. And then if you say, okay, well, when you need something, would you ask for it? Would you ask for some help? Oh no, I don't want to burden somebody, or whatever it looks like. Oh no, I can take care of it myself. I don't understand that, yet I've practiced that same
Yeah.
problematic. Uh, I guess I don't even know what the right word is for it. It's a symptom of something, that we're incapable of sometimes, letting our guard down and being vulnerable and honestly authentic in our relationships by asking for help.
I definitely came from a mentality, and the men in my family came from a generation of you don't ask for help,
Mm,
so I can definitely relate to that, and I definitely think that drove a lot of um, decisions in my life until I really did ask for help,
yeah.
and man, thinking JJ, I think the first time that I really asked for help outside of myself, whether it be therapist or a group or advice, really
Mm,
advice, even I think was when I got sober, and I went to AA, and that was a big, that's like asking for all of the help, not just one guy, not just your family or a close friend, but you're going into a room full of strangers, and they're asking you to stand up and pour your heart out right away about your
mm,
deepest darkest secrets, and it was like, trial by fire. You just jumped right into the deep end with that, and I had a lot of apprehension to that, a lot of resistance, and a lot of pains when I first started that process. But
mm.
that, I think, was my first introduction to that, and it changed my life, for the better, and opened up my mind to just a whole new possibilities of things that I couldn't even realize were out there. Due to my not asking for help because I'm so limited to my opinion.
Wow. I imagine that at that point, when you are going into that, a lot of times it feels like a state of desperation, and I've got to have something. I've got to have something to help, because clearly I've lost some sort of self control here in this, and I'm in a scary place, and apparently there's something out there for people like this. And I think there's probably a lot of shame, I imagine, with a number of the people going there. Shame for the idea, like, okay, I can't do this on my own, which is something I've been pushing against my entire life, and shame because I'm actually here in this place and I don't know what to do to get out of it. That's a really tough place to be, huh?
Why do we wait until we get to that point as human beings? You know,
Yeah,
I think it's really hard for a lot of people to ask for help, even if you didn't grow up in a generation that, I'm talking about in the men in my family.
yeah,
It's always hard to ask for help. Some people go to therapy and still don't talk about the truth.
yeah.
Why is
And
that? Why do you think that is?
well, I mean, there's a big history of our, culture getting us to that point. And a lot of times, like you were saying, it's sometimes hard to put your finger on it for any one person, but I think one problem is, we don't become self-aware enough. And what does that mean? Like, okay, you've gotten to this point, and then you ask the question of yourself, like, how did I get here? So a lot of times it's just simply hard to really unpack it because I have rejected the idea of finding coping mechanisms outside of myself to help me in this journey. Um, if we're going to talk about decades past and, somewhat, still very much an influence on today's culture, just like working culture, um, men would go to work and they would be the breadwinner of the family. Well, you know what, if this is like the traditional family of husband, wife, and kids, and the wife stays home with the kids, she's helping out in a massive way, but the dads a lot of times got this story built up in their heads that I'm the provider, I'm the one who protects the family because I am going out and making a living, which provides a protection with a roof over our heads. It provides food in our bellies and stuff like that, and that possibly shuts off that emotional component of protection with the family. So then when I'm focused all on this resources of physical resources for the family, this is where my lane is. And therefore the emotional component, all that stuff that's going on over there, that's not really me. That's not my identity. I don't need to be involved in that. I'm doing what I'm doing, which is really creating, the opportunity for everything else to happen. Therefore, obviously, I have something, this might be the wrong way to put it, but I have the authority in this area. I'm providing everything that I need to provide, and that emotional stuff, that's below me. I don't need to go there because I've already gotten to this point. And
I've
that
got a
toxic
question for you.
Yeah, buddy.
I got a question for you. Do you think that apprehension of wanting to go to the emotional, development of that or understanding, because you're talking about, the emotion, that's self, right? We're the ones that have autonomy and control over that. Do you think that there's maybe a fear in that than sometimes how we put all of our eggs in the basket of the external and the physical, something we work to get a paycheck to provide for?
Yeah.
And then that's kind of third party, right? Someone else is responsible for our success or failure in that department.
Mm-hmm.
But yet that kind of almost gives us an out, right? And feels a little bit safer,
Yeah.
not because you're doing everything you can, but you only have so much control,
Yeah.
but the emotional stuff, that means it's all on me. If I don't
Right.
have that figured out, does that mean I'm broken?
Mm.
So do you think that maybe some fear comes into play in that, provide for, or and how that drives away maybe the balance of emotional at home presence?
Yeah, I mean, it is an unspoken thing that happens there a lot of times. Is I've reached my capacity in what I do to provide
Yeah.
for myself and my family, and when I want to get home, I want to be released from all of my burdens of the day and take it easy. Somebody else has got that other component going. I could be present. I'm not saying you turn into a stone wall and you offer no sort of emotional support to the family. But I think that, yeah, it's very easy to get in that trap that, this is my role. This is my identity within the family. And that other stuff is something that really it shouldn't be my responsibility because I've already, taken over the responsibilities for the family that I should manage. And then of course, like you said, the fear of it, yeah, that sounds to a lot of people, if they want to tell themselves this, that's kind of beyond my capacity, and that's scary, and I don't really know if I have time to invest in that. I've just done what I can, and I don't want to address those things. That sounds like so much work, and I've just been working all day.
Yeah.
Again, that's a very toxic way of looking at it, and I would always suggest, from my personal experience, just like yesterday, I reached the end of the day of Cohen's summer camp. And so I was coming from work to pick him up. because I'm a single father. That's what I do. And it was like, oh, cool. I'm putting that stuff aside, and I'm going to get my kiddo, and I can't wait to talk to him about all the kind things that happened today, how many points he earned at camp for doing well. I'm just excited to see what the evening will look like. And of course, I do get to that point of feeling like, all right, I've reached some sort of capacity, but the thing is that capacity is in that particular lane. It's not in the lane of being a father and being the emotional and, spiritual provider for my kiddo. That stuff is actually, dare I suggest, the major bonus of life. I'm not working to provide. I'm working to thrive with my family as best I can.
Yeah. I totally feel you there. I think there's a big mentality shift, as the generations are getting younger into parenthood, and I think that we're really kind of paying attention to that experience more, and realizing the value in that, which makes me, really happy, because I've kind of always felt like that and always had this weird desire to be a dad, even as a kid. I don't know what that, was about, but I just, just really looked forward to that bond, and had a special bond with my dad, in a lot of those moments. So I just wanted to carry that on and push that on. And what better meaning of life is there than that connection of family and what we do here?
Yeah. And then, back to the idea of asking for help, like that starts from a very early age, where we're not like, literally asking for help as much as we are working together to help our family succeed. And whether that's, being there for your kids' first steps, or providing that meal, or, cooking the meal, or just being there to provide laughs and stuff. That's a community family building exercise. And that stuff that all ties together. Like, asking for help is really an indication of your relationship, and what you bring to that relationship, the faith you have in that relationship, the amount of strength of the love and bond that's in that relationship. All that stuff, is tied into the idea of asking for help. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? How asking for help from just about anybody? I know you mentioned AA, where it's strangers, which some people would say that's even more scary than asking for help from somebody you have built a bond and trust with. But I think, I would, defer to you, but I would think that in some ways, when you reach a certain point where you haven't asked for help from the people you love, now you're scared to approach them. You're approaching them with something that's vulnerable, and it could be scary that you're going to be judged by them, perhaps. And, then you look at it as like, oh, I'm so far off track that now I'm a burden.
Yeah, that was my apprehension, JJ. Am I broken? And it's interesting, because we ask for help when we want to learn new skills, when we want to learn a new idea. We go to school, we ask for help from professors and study groups and tutors and mentors and coaches and, trainers and therapists. And then, that's where the buck stops, right? Is like therapist, or that's when people start like getting, I don't know if I want to ask for that help, or self-help, and I definitely fell into that, brother. I was ashamed of my choices. I didn't want to tell people about them. I had hurt people, lied to people. What did this process mean if all of that had to come to a surface, or talked about, or shared? And it was really overwhelming, on top of, me realizing these mistakes. Now I had to, and wanting to do something about them. Now I had to go, share it and air it out, and be there for other people who are going through it. And what did I know about their journey? I was a mess up and made all of these bad choices. And how was I going to help somebody who, and when you go to AA, brother, you hear some stories, and it's enough to scare somebody out of the room, and asking for help, because there's people that are like, no, help me over here. I need help, and you're like, oh, okay, I guess I don't need help. That guy needs help. So I'll just wait in the back of the room, and figure it out on my own over here.
Yeah.
And why does the buck stop at asking for help for yourself, for
Mm.
personal development, for wanting to grow? Never in those other areas of asking for help do we just stop at one opinion, or one. We don't just stop at first grade and we learned everything we need to know. You go to different teachers and different mentors and different people to feed you different ideas and to help you grow and to help you learn those skills and think about them in new ways. But why not the way that your brain works and the way that
Mm.
your behavior works and the way that your trauma represents itself?
Mm.
And, no one wants to get into touch with that. And it's a very humbling process, to go through there and sit in a room. I remember my first AA meeting, JJ, was was in a room full of bikers, and and this is NA that I'm going to. I'll tell you the journey of how this kind of transitioned throughout my process. But I was going to NA for coke and a lot of party drugs, living with DJs. And, my ex and I were partiers and living in our 20s. And it was just kind of constant. And once we moved out of that roommate situation and got just the two of us, and the friendships evaporated, and I was left with all of these thoughts and lies and decisions and choices, and about to start this marriage and this headspace of like, what am I doing? And all of this escapism. And, it, I didn't know where to go. I looked up my first NA meeting, and walked into this group, and it was all these big bikers, ZZ Top beards and just leather jackets, with the cuts and their name on the, their club, and chains and boots, and just deep gruff guys, and I'm like, whoa, and okay, and I got in there, and when it got my turn to stand up and, hi, my name is Colton and I'm an addict, and man, I just broke into tears, and it all came out, just years of all of this stuff. And just, I don't think I had a period or a comma in that. I just vomited it all out. And all these guys just came and hugged me and welcomed me and wanted to hear my story and gave me lists of resources and people to talk to along the journey. And I reached out, and little by little, and it wasn't all at once, like that moment there, that was just kind of maybe the thing that broke the dam. And then we kind of trickled all over here and there until we finally kind of formed an idea and a path, and it took months, and falling off, and really asking for the help and getting honest with myself, and really finding someone who was going to ask me the right questions that I had never thought about asking before, or that maybe I had asked in my past or in my family, and it had become an issue the way that I had asked it or the way that I had worded it. And here I had these great men on this journey that were giving me different ways of thinking about these ideas. They weren't telling me you're wrong for saying that, and how dare you say that. They were saying, like, we hear you, and that's your truth, brother, but maybe we can express it in a different way that's not so destructive, or ruins the path of the relationships that are still in front of you, and how to make amends for the ones that are behind you, and ownership and vulnerability became a huge power during that process, and the things that I had spent my life fearing and running away from and not wanting to ask myself because it felt too scary. And like I said, if I ask myself this and I fail at this, then I'm broken. Then I am just an addict. I do just fall into the generational, repetitional pattern that has been going on, and just that the men in my family may have been too self-guarded to dive into or be curious about, and what am I going to do with that? And all of a sudden thinking about that in that way, and owning it, and having success with it little by little, sharing it with somebody that wasn't like, well, now where I'm never talking to you again, or you've ruined that relation. I can't believe you did that. You lied to me about that, or you broke this, or you did that. You were this person. But I could tell them that, and they go, whew, yeah. And how did that work out? What are you learning from that? What are you gonna do about that? Yeah. Why do you think you did that? And again, asking those questions where there was no judgment. There was no, you're such a awful person for doing that to that person, or thinking that way, but understanding the brokenness in it and accepting that, but still directing in a way that was with love and inspiration towards growth. It can be very powerful when we just let it down, wash over us. And there was a lot of fallout through that, JJ. I'm not saying that everybody was like, oh, wow, thank you. You're being honest. Wow, you're such a good person. Well, forget about all that. There were people in my life that through the amends process and opening up that were, well, how dare you? I don't know if I can move forward in a relationship with you. And that was hurtful and hard to navigate. But I think it's also right, and I think it's what integrity is made of, to have the accountability and ownership over it. And I'm not talking about accountability in the sense of shame or guilt. I'm talking about accountability, and this isn't who you say you want to be, right? We've really talked about this. You wrote it out, and we've had multiple talks about this. I'm just going to remind you of who you say you want to be, and how this behavior impacts the people around you, and how you ultimately say it makes you feel. And that's the kind of accountability that I had been mistaking my whole life. I thought accountability was get up and do it, suck it up, buttercup, like we were talking last episode, and just do it, no excuses. And there is an element to that. I was defending that the other day, and I do advocate for that to a certain degree, but also with understanding and this element of acceptance, just pure acceptance of human nature and brokenness and hurt, and that it doesn't define us as our souls and how we express ourselves as humans, or who we are as humans. It's an expression of our human nature, and that's okay, and we can learn from it, and you can strive towards wholeness, goodness, holiness, integrity, and honor, and you can still fail in striving for that. And that's what I really found powerful too. It's not like, well, I'm a good person all the time, or I'm just now perfect, but I do have a lot of conversations to refer back on, and a lot of connections still that help me through those moments with understanding and grace. So, that's my story with it, and why I think that it's so powerful, and why we need to talk about this now, JJ. And it's not easy, and I'm over here kind of shaken because I've got all kind of vulnerable and honest about my decisions, and with that, like I said, comes a lot of judgment, But one of my core values is honesty and vulnerability, and I really believe in in taking a relationship or a connection to a higher level by leaning into vulnerability rather than trying to guard against it, and that's definitely been a superpower in my marriage, and was definitely my kryptonite in my last, and it's sad that I didn't learn this soon enough in life. Oh, let's not say, because I'm very happy with what I am and very grateful. But there was, like I said, a lot of there can be gratitude with a tinge of regret, and regret again isn't packaged with guilt and shame. My regret is packaged with the acknowledgement of, And sometimes that pain can be a really good reminder of who I want to be and what I went through and what I left in my wake, and how I'm moving forward, and so I encourage the pain, and I encourage and I welcome the regret sometimes, because it sets me up for the steps in front of me. So I rambled for a lot there, and I'm sure, like what I said, there might be a lot of judgment with what I just said from the listeners, but that's me. That's my story, and without it, I wouldn't be who I am today. And like Coach Ray King said, it was my favorite. My mess is the message, and I really truly believe in that. We don't all have it figured out, but we can maybe piece together of some steps of things to avoid, and what we've learned, and what we can do good. So thanks for listening, bud.
Whew. So there's a lot of gems in there and a lot of things to kind of circle back around to, and really kind of pull apart and put to use for somebody who's maybe a certain steps or a certain step in the process. But I just want to first acknowledge you, like, buddy, the thing is like you said, the message as we've heard and as you've just stated now is there's not a single person out there who doesn't have stumbling blocks and has struggle points and has addiction of some sort, and has an area where they need help and they're struggling to help themselves. There's a lot to unpack there, just like you talked about with your conversation with your father, and finding out that your father had a lot of similarities to you and how he was thinking about things, but not putting voice to them. And that's something that has me curious, is if we learn at certain points, we might not say it, to ourselves, internally, but at some point a lot of us, we think, okay, this is something I can't share with my parents. I look up to my parents in every way, but I can't share this with them. And our parents do the same thing for us. Like Grace talked about in a previous episode, is, if you went through divorce, and at some point your kids probably want to have an understanding of why. You don't have to tell all the details, but at what point are you preventing something from being impactful and authentic with your relationship that you have with somebody else? All that kind of goes into play, and asking for help with your situation, with where you got to. You realize that this type of help you probably need might not come from this relationship or that relationship, but I know there's other people who have walked this, type of journey, or at least have a shared experience in their struggles. And going to that sometimes, when somebody can say, oh, I can relate. This was my experience. It's not necessarily, we're going to sit in our struggles and just wallow, but instead this is part of the healing journey, is understanding that we're not alone. Like, I'm sure you didn't go in there thinking, well, this is the first time in human history somebody's done what I've done, so this is going to be fun. Everybody's not going to know what to do. Instead, you finally realize, what, there's a lot of authenticity out there that can be had in going to this place and asking for help and talking about what it is that I'm trying to find, toward the path of redemption. And I need to ask for help now. I've gotten to this point where I have to ask for help if I want to succeed and find that healing process. And the tough part, if I were to bring it back to the family conversation, is, again, somewhere along the way, we felt we needed to protect somebody by not asking for help from somebody that we hold really close and dear to our hearts. And that's tough, because I still have certain times where I'm just like, all right, I don't think I should share this or should ask for help in this way from this person, but I can from somebody else. And what is it? Do you have a thought on that, Colton? Is, okay, I've identified this person is probably the one of the people that I hold in highest regard, but I can't ask them for help here. I've got to ask somebody else, and maybe a stranger would be better to ask.
Yeah, that was difficult for me to ask for family for help, one, because, on my mom's side of the family, I felt like such the golden child, that everybody was so proud of, and I how do you give up that identity? That's detrimental to the ego, to 26 years of building that character, and now I have to let that go and admit that I don't have my shit together, and I've made a lot of really poor choices. you know so that was fear of one, and then I had a lot of fear from my dad, who I also saw struggle with a lot of those same tendencies throughout his life, you know and what that would mean. Would I let him down, or would I be just another apple off the old tree, and what did that mean? Was I locked into that behavior? Was it part of my blood, my genetic, something that I just always had to look out for? And what did that mean? Sobriety and NA, like there was things that I still enjoyed about life, like having an occasional drink. I never felt myself an alcoholic. I never got like blind out drunk, but there was this one substance that just like got me, and I just felt like my ADHD brain was like, oh, I can understand that. Oh, this is how we're supposed to work. I can finally feel like I'm operating all at the same speed that I want to. Your brains and your body's moving at the same time, but really I was like a twacked out lunatic, and but it in my mind made sense, and we've talked about like, of ADHD medication, and whether we're for or against it or advocating for it. And I'm not going to take one stance or another, and I'm definitely not going to tell a family what to do with their kid. That is a journey for you to understand, and your child, and everybody is different on medication. But I do, now being on ADHD medication for the last year, feel that connection with it being a methamphetamine. And people are like, well, you're just giving your kid meth, and maybe there are some brains that benefit from that neurological connection to give you the dopamine that you're not able to produce on your own, you know and for me, it's a wholeness. Not that I rely on it all the time, but it does help me when I need to focus in and do my work in a controlled setting, where I'm talking with professionals, and I'm talking with groups and these mentors and coaches and people that are close to me and been with me through my journey, and understand those things, and I'm getting information from them and educating myself on my journey, and I feel that benefit, but when you're going through NA, the whole idea is you don't have a problem with one substance. You have a problem with sobriety. You have a problem with being present with yourself and thinking your thoughts, and being okay with however those feelings transcend after those thoughts have happened, and you want the escapism. And so you're using substances to escape. And that's not what ADHD medication is for me. That was what cocaine became for me in an uncontrolled environment, and in party environments where it's in this setting and you don't know what it's mixed with, and all this other stuff, chaotic stuff is going on, that you get all of a sudden down this rabbit hole of addiction, and you lose control, and that substance all of a sudden becomes directing and captaining your brain and your neurological connections, and how you are able to process and feel and and perceive and analyze the information that is going to help you and affect you in a positive way, you know and again, that took years, JJ, of my journey. We just passed the 6-year mark of my sobriety, you know and I'm still on it every day, talking about it and learning about it, and doing more education on the medication that I'm on, and talking with my psychiatrist about dosages and other potentials and side effects that I've read or feel or have learned about, and that's important. But when I was doing my NA journey, and, in that understanding of it's all about the sobriety, and where you're at and how you're trying to escape who you are right now, so I gave everything up, and went down that journey. But NA became a little scary and intense, because, there were some really intense cases and stories in there where people could get violent or were coming in high or coming down or detoxing from whatever substance, and they didn't have necessarily full control over their reality or their bodies. And people got punched, escorted out, arrested, and it started to become feeling like an unsafe environment as I went to these different meetings and tried to find a home and where I felt comfortable and where I could talk to people. And I ended up knowing a buddy of mine who's he's a dear friend. I'll plug him now, Zane Helberg. He runs an organization called Laugh to Live. And he was on his sobriety journey about 3 years into it and was mentoring young men, and I knew that he was going to meetings all the time and posting about it. He was just in the early stages of launching this company, Laugh to Live, and where he was going around to sober house living and halfway houses and meetings and putting on comedy shows, and for free at first, and then started selling tickets and would go to comedy venues and rent it out, and then call all of the halfway houses and sober houses to come down to this place and watch him do comedy and just give them a break from all of the intense conversations that you're having in these NA meetings, right? Because they can be like, oh man, just every day you're supposed to go to a meeting, to 3 meetings a day, and oh, man, you're just, that can burn you out, all of that emotion and all of that intensity and all of that realness and truth and honesty, washing over you, it's hard, and I was having a hard time finding where to go and what message was resonating with me. And and I reached out to my buddy Zane and said, can you help me? And he pulled me in and took me over to a coffee shop and listened to me blubber and, get into the stuff and didn't tell me what to do once. He just asked questions, brother. And maybe that's why our friendship resonated with me when we first met, because you're really good at asking questions, and I don't think that I've ever was approached by another man like that before that didn't have an opinion about how to fix what I was supposed to do or the mistakes that I was making. And that was very encouraging, and again, there was no judgment. There was no follow-up. It was just another question. And I would answer his question, and then he would ask another question. And I kept waiting for all right, well, the pointing finger to come down on me and the, list of things. Well, all right, I got it all figured out for you. Just do this, 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 and this, And, he just asked questions and just listened to me, and the last question that he asked was, do you want to feel better? Do you want to change? Do you want this to change? And I said, yes. And he said, are you willing to do anything to do it? And I said, yes, I'm at the point I'm willing to do anything for it. And he said, okay, well then let's start. Meet me here. Think about it. Don't say yes now. Think about it tonight and sleep on it. If you do, call me, come to this meeting, buy a journal, buy this book, and we'll start, and I did it. And he kept saying, all right, show up here. I'm going to ask you these questions. Don't ask me, just write it down. You don't have to tell me. I'm going to ask you questions. And we built a relationship built on curiosity and what was going on in my head. And he never came down with that finger moment in that list of things that I needed to do. He just met me, and I felt comfortable going to him because, we had done comedy together. We were in a movie together. We had written stuff and so I felt comfortable. I had seen, his journey and where he was at when we were, years before, and then where he had come in those 3 years of his sobriety. And I said, God dang, this guy is a different dude, and when I first met this guy and our relationship and maybe even maybe pass judgment on his kind of his behavior and his addiction. He was kind of wild, and you could tell he was kind of drunk and sloppy at times. And I'm sitting here, sniffing my coke, in the porta potty, going, oh, this guy this guy's an asshole. Doesn't have his shit together, And here we are years later, I'm falling apart, begging for help, feeling like him, out of control, and he's got his shit together, and he's extending a hand out to me, and it was humbling, So Zane, if you're out there, man, love you, brother. You'll always be a brother, work together still and talk still.
Wow, brother.
Man, sorry.
No.
Got a little teared up there, man. Yeah, that got real. And Zane, I do love you, brother. And go check out Zane's comedy, man. He's a fantastic comedian, making people laugh, and he's still doing it, man. So, he's a good dude. So, and if you're in a hard place, he's got that organization, and he's a good guy to just watch his comedy around that subject if you need a laugh from it, and he's somebody that if you reach out to him too, he'll help any stranger off the street. That's part of his mission and what he does in AA. So yeah. But just to wrap up the story, I know I've been going on for a while and made this episode mostly about me and all the help that I've needed to ask for over the years. But maybe this will just be a longer episode, or maybe we'll cut it into two, because I'm not ready to go yet, and as we're nearing the 45-minute mark. But I do want to wrap up the story, because Zane, helped me through that process. And I was going to these NA meetings, and it got to a point where I said, man, I'm really not feeling comfortable here. I was at this meeting last night. This guy like lost his shit and punched this woman in the face. And, these guys got the story that, and everybody's court mandated to be there. They got to sign these slips, ordered by the judge. And, it just doesn't feel necessarily safe, to be going to these meetings at 9-10 o'clock at night, And I don't know if I'm getting a message here, because everybody is just like, fuck this. And they show up high and it's not taken seriously, and I'm just very uncomfortable, not to pass judgment on anybody in their journey, but I was just feeling not safe and not comfortable, and, wasn't getting anything out of it. And he said, why don't you go to AA? And I said, well, I never really, had a problem with alcohol before. My dad's an alcoholic, and I've never been blackout drunk. I drink every now and then, and maybe I'll get drunk on New Year's or a holiday every now and then, where I maybe slur a little bit, and but that's not a regular thing for me, and he was the one that was, sobriety is about sobriety and escapism, and you should go to these guys. And because AA is more of a volunteer based, kind of group. They want to help, they want to get help, and they want to get better. And so there's not a lot of the court ordered slips there. And you may just find it's just a little bit, calmer of a message. But if you're going there, you can't drink. This is all about sobriety. You just have to do this for 90 days at least, brother. Just stay sober. Just do it, man. So I said, okay, man. Went in there, and it's the same message. The 12 steps are the 12 steps. No matter if you're addicted to coke, crack, heroin, or weed, or all slew of sex. It's all the process to healing addiction is all the same. It's 12 steps, brother, so it's just what the content of what we're talking about, and I did find that AA environment more welcoming, and, and more curious and more exploratory and dedicated towards success, and healing and learning about this process. So, and I did that, and he put me with a group that was a little bit structured differently. It was not in the normal AA setting. It is, there's just questions and there's no crosstalk, and I told you about my upbringing and the men in my generations before me, so I kind of do respond to a little bit of tough love, as they call it. And there is a certain amount of get it, son, just get up and do it, son. That as much as I don't like it, and as much as it triggers me to a certain extent and causes a lot of negative feelings in me, it does work with me. And I do have to find the balance in my own self-motivation with that, but, so, and he said that this group is a little bit more like that. They'll challenge you more on the daily exercises and the prompts and the stuff, and they'll reach out to you every day and talk with you every day and there's no shyness through it. They cut right through there. And if you say something that doesn't make sense, or that, that doesn't sound like healthy choices, they'll call you out on it in a meeting. They'll hold you accountable to it. No. That's not what we say here. And that's old Colton. You said new Colton wanted to do this, and that's old behavior. So no, why did you do that? Let's talk about that. How are you going to fix this now? And what are you going to look out for next time? And I found that very powerful, that it was more an interactive approach to the process, but it was intense, and it took a lot of like, oh, all right, yeah. All right, I gotta let this process in and just really lean into it, So thank God for that group and those guys, and again for Zane for walking me through that process, and for myself too, for being vulnerable enough to ask for help to him, And sometimes it is hard when we don't have the people closest to us that have been helping us, that we want to ask for help, but whatever, there's too much guilt, shame to ask for it. So we don't, and we can't go to strangers because that feels too scary. We got to find that person. And God, I hope that we at least have, everybody out there has at least one person out there, and I'm putting that out there right now. If you don't, it's me, brother. You reach out to us on the email, you call me on my personal line. It's all on social media. I put it out there for you men to call me at any time with a problem like this, because I've been there before. And again, I know I said I was going to wrap up this story, and here I am still going, but I do have a point to this,
You're doing well. You're doing well, brother. You only have to stop if you feel like your passion has reached its end.
Oh, never, brother. I can talk about this for the rest of my life, and that's the point, and that's also what scared me about going into this process. This is me for the rest of my life. I'm an addict now. I'm just a fucking loser who has no control over his own thoughts and wants and desires and impulses. Wow. And that's just me. I just have to just accept that. And I thought that meant that was going to control me my whole life, and that was a big, big mistake and a lie that I was telling myself. We talked about the stories that we tell ourselves. That was what I told myself, even if I wasn't admitting it, even if I always countered it with, well, no, but I do have this. That thought always kept coming back, and I just, no. I would just shove it down or think about it. No, think about something more positive, or focus so you are more focused on that, or you are a different person, and rather than just accepting it and being like, oh, well, what does that feel like to accept that? What does that feel like to realize that truth now? Let's live in that reality for a moment, because this other reality that I was trying to create for myself and telling myself, all these other people in my life seem to be telling me, you're not that person. You're not doing this. And here I was trying to avoid that thing and doing it all at the same time, rather than going, what? All right, all right, then I'll just admit it. Let's believe that. Okay, well, why don't I want to admit that? What was I so... That doesn't feel that bad, I guess. Okay, yeah, well, I am. Okay, if I am that person, then what do I go from here? How do I change? Well, God, that doesn't feel that bad either. What was I so hung up on about admitting that I am this person, or accepting this about me? Because shit, I was right the whole time. I'm not this person. This is a part of who I am. But let's get in touch with why, so that I can create a new person, and we can merge those two together to create a whole person. And I'm getting real Buddhist on you and stuff right here, man, and real Zen throughout the 12-step process. But, and I got to a point through this process where I started getting scared of the 12th step, JJ, because it's going out and offering the help now, showing up, being a sponsor, being a mentor, taking another man under your wing and teaching him about this process and what that was like for you. And again, telling all your deepest, darkest secrets, but now holding the space and asking those good questions so that somebody else feels honest and vulnerable enough to open up to you. And I got scared of that, whoa, that seems like the scariest step, admitting that there was a God creating a higher power that was scary when I was in it too. That's the first step, or the second step after you admit that you have a problem. Now you got to just surrender to higher power. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't go to church. I wasn't religious. I didn't spend time with my parents reading over Bible scripture. I kind of had a curiosity to it and explored a little bit with my grandparents, but my dad was kind of like, kind of just apprehensive to the idea and was more of an agnostic, if atheist, if nothing less, but it's, I still had a curiosity in that, wanted to uncover some of that, wanted to explore that. And what I found powerful in the AA process was the surrender to, you're not the most important thing in the universe, pub. You don't have all the answers. You aren't the end all be all. And all of your choices and decisions and thoughts and all of the ideas that have come into your head are not the only ideas to get out of this problem, are not the only ideas to help define who you are. Because I spent so much time not understanding who I was and not wanting to be certain things, but not knowing what words to put to who I wanted to be. And that was hard to deal with and confusing, but that's okay, because you can fail and you can still strive for that. And you can surrender to not knowing and open up to a higher power, whether it be fate, chaos, gamble, one person, many, an idea. I live through the parable of it, the metaphor of it, not what's at the end goal, not a pearly gate or fiery damnation. I don't strive towards a thing. I strive towards an idea. I strive towards the idea of growing and learning and being better and helping others grow and learn, rather than just trying to make my own self succeed, to drive forward, to get what I wanted out of life and prove to everybody that I was smart and capable and did know it all and did have all the answers. Because that was a false idea and a false idea of perfection. And that's where the unholy, that's where the devil is to me in the metaphor. That's where the ego takes control and makes it all about one rather than the many, And when I got to that 12th step, I went back to, my sponsor, and I said, look, I don't know if I necessarily feel comfortable sponsoring another man, especially in this group that has helped me carry me through this last 90 days, because they were AA. I didn't really necessarily identify with that. I had gotten to the end of my 90-day journey, and I was with my wife at the time, and we were celebrating on our anniversary, and I wanted to have a glass of wine, and I didn't. And he said, listen, if you do that, you can't go to this group anymore and tell them that you're going to drink during this process, but not do Coke. They're not going to understand. They're very, like I said, it was a little bit unconventional towards the normal standard of how an AA meeting is structured, and he told me to just go in there, say you're an alcoholic. It's all the same thing. This is safer for you. Get through the process and then we'll talk, so I did that. And, I wanted to just have a drink on my anniversary, which I did with one and was fine. And then went the next several years continuing my journey and focusing on my growth and mental health and space, and occasionally I have beers from time to time. I don't do cocaine anymore. I'm when I say 6.5 years sober, I'm saying from drugs. I will partake in a drink with my wife. Every once in a while, but that is in control. I think that she's right on the other side of the screen. If she has any objections to any behavior, she can chime in right now and throw me under the rug and call me a fraud. Okay. But I feel that I'm in a very good place, and that's not for everybody. Some people do have to abstain from all sorts of mind altering substances or prescriptions or whatever. And I'm not advocating for you one way or the other. I'm simply just being vulnerable with my journey and where I'm at on it and how I feel about it, and my confidence in myself, so that's just where I'm at. That's my whole journey. But after I had opted out of that 12-step program, JJ, that 12th step in the program, I the fear all of a sudden became guilt and regret. And I kept reminding myself, and I kept talking with all these people that I had met on this process, because it's just, I'm not going to these meetings anymore. Doesn't mean that I can't go to other meetings. Doesn't mean that I can't have relationships with these people. They still welcome me with open arms, even if I do fall off the wagon, or even if I did make that mistake, or even if I do drink and they don't. There's no judgment there. The respect to not go to that meeting specifically was discussed in the parameters and the boundaries that have been established to me. And that's what's important through this process, is that openness and willing to discuss all of these things and uncomfortable things and admit, I had a drink. Does that make you uncomfortable? Like, am I not allowed to come here anymore? Can we not be friends anymore if I do that? Curiosity is the goal of all of this. And as I opted out of that 12th step and kept on going through my journey and talking to all these people that have been so crucial in helping develop new Colton, I kept having to ask myself, that fear is old Colton, not wanting to help men and not thinking that you have something to offer here. Because what I came to learn in developing new Colton is that we all have something very, very valuable to contribute to this process. And without our story, and without our vulnerability, and without our willing to be curious in each other, then none of us could do this, because you aren't the higher power. We all collectively, as one whole and holy thing, are, so it's a tribe, it's a group effort, it's a community of love and understanding and curiosity, and badass fucking dudes that want to make the world a better place. They want to make their families a better place. They want to make themselves a better place, because that's where it starts. And we often think that if we have all of these external things, if the job goes right, if I make more money, if I can just avoid my feelings and work, then I'll be a success. We rely on all of these external things rather than where it should start, which is with us. We hope all these other things, if we could just get these other things, then we will be the whole thing. We will be complete. And we got to reverse it. So we start with ourselves, brother, because once you can figure that out, and once you understand yourself, and once you understand the right questions to ask, and you surround yourself by the right people who can help you ask those questions, then you can change the world. And then you can change the external things that are holding you back. You can change those for somebody else. But it has to start with us and what we're willing to do for ourselves to feel better, for what we're doing for ourselves to grow. So dang, man, I'm going to get off of my Apple box here. I got all fired up and passionate about this. So appreciate you for letting me talk, brother.
Well, thank you for sharing, brother. There was never a point in there where I said, all right, Colton, wrap it up. I wish we would have hit record, though. That's the only worry that I have. No, kidding, of course. Wouldn't
that have been a shame?
But
take two.
I think this episode has taken on a new form from when we started it, and I want to just acknowledge that was a great thing to go into that process in more in depth, because I think a lot of people can also extract from it something that they relate to in their journey to sobriety, from whatever it looks like that they're experiencing. And one thing that I wanted to highlight that you talked about at some point in there was, I think the fear, and a lot of times I think the fear of rejection, fear of something taking place in that prevents us from really taking a step forward. And when you have the right people in place, like you were talking about, and they say, I see this person here, they're not giving themselves credit, or they're not seeing it the way I'm seeing it. I need to start asking the right questions. because I recognize in them this desire, this fire, this strong interest in growth. And sometimes when you hit the bottom, well, that's okay. You recognize the areas of growth that you're trying to move up from. And a coach, a good coach, will say, I see this person, and I'm going to ask them questions because I think they're missing the mark as to what greatness lies within themselves. So they're coming to me afraid, and I'm going to ask them the questions that say, hey, what parts of this process do you want to reject that don't define you, but also you are trapped within, that you can push away from. So just like a coach on the field will say, I see this player and they're a massive talent. The tough love thing, as you said earlier, sometimes the coach yells. The right coach will yell out of tough love because they're pushing you to that excel that you have within to produce, that excellence that's there, that you are capable of outputting on a regular basis, and you've just found yourself stuck in this pattern. And that pattern isn't the part that defines you. What defines you is the greatness that you have within, that you're going to push out there and push against those demons that do try to, take grab of you. So I just wanted to highlight that, like you mentioned tough love, and sometimes you need tough love. Well, the tough love that's done right is the tough love that asks the questions. That doesn't say, oh, you're a failure, but says, hey, there's a part of you that's failing right now, or there's something that's causing you to repeat a failure. And that's what I want to understand about you. And I want you to understand about yourself, because we know you have the tools within to push past that. The strength is there, and I am here to help you understand that about yourself, because right now I think you're afraid. So tough love can be a beautiful thing. As long as you're not rejecting the person, you're rejecting the idea that this defines them, this place that they're constantly struggling with and hurting experiencing is the definition of who they are. No, I'm instead saying the definition of who they are is that person who's going to persevere through this. The bottom is a place that people rarely go to set up camp and be happy, and to, I should say, suggest that they can find happiness in. The people that were going there that were kind of a little bit violent, a little bit afraid, they were actually probably in that moment showing their cry for help. And it would take most likely somebody with an extraordinary patience to recognize in that moment where this person's actually like trying to come to physical blows, like, gosh, there's a lot of hurt in this person. And I could say to them, you are nothing but a violent, horrible human being, and you need to be put in a cell for the rest of your life. Or I could start asking the questions, be like, man, this person has something in them that can turn this around. And the beautiful thing is like when you said, hey, this is a little bit of an uncomfortable space for me, you were already identifying that part of you that says, I'm pushing back against the things that I want to be better about. And I don't kind of understand this, but somebody's asking me the right questions to help me understand this is a path to sobriety. AA, a great thing to remind us that like we all have something that we, would like to not have control over our lives sometimes. We don't want to be stuck in this addiction phase with this thing over and over again. That's not bringing us to, the next level of where we want to achieve greater success and growth in our lives. And so when we can say, yeah, I'm an imperfect person. There's a higher level of importance in being out there that I can submit myself to, because that's okay. Because I know through this process, I'm suggesting also that I do fall into that same category that every human being falls into of, yeah, this is actually kind of harmful for me. And it's somehow digging its hooks into me. And that makes me uncomfortable. But I don't think I can do this by myself. I need to ask for help. And then you got those people who are like, hey, guess what? I was there. I'm going to ask you some questions because I want to know you. I didn't know myself a few years ago. I know myself much better now. I'm still needing sobriety from some things, but that's the experience. The expertise I bring to this now is that this trained me in empathy and understanding of people, and I want to share that with the world. And then the other person's like, hey, I want help in that. Great. We're going to pair up. We're going to make something great of something that you're just not quite seeing right now. That's a great journey, man. I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue this discussion in another episode. Maybe like break apart the components of what, help looks like. Like, I think, like I mentioned, fear of rejection, a bunch there. And I think we get stuck in that phase of fear. What are we afraid of? And that can hold us back. So I'd say to be continued on some of that stuff. And honestly, through the journey that you shared with us today, that's going to be powerful. That's going to hit some people in a way that they really need to be hit. Not because we're saying, hey, you're a loser, you're a screw up, but hey, this is a call. Take the call. It's a good thing. I've never met somebody who improved and was like, God dang it, I wish I was still stuck back in that addiction phase. That was the best time of my life. So thanks, man, for sharing it today.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate those words and totally agree. I think the common thing that's misunderstood about tough love is that we often think that it's love that needs to be defended by toughness, and we want to do that aggressively, but it's not. It's love that is tough, it's love that is strong, so that's what asking for help can really do, is show you that love is strong, and that it can carry you through hard times with curiosity and understanding. So thank you for saying that, brother. I completely agree. And thank you for letting me pour my heart out to you. And thank you to the listeners. It was definitely cathartic for me. So, but, I hope you guys did get something out of this. And again, if you are in a place where you do need help, or you are struggling with addiction, you can reach out to me or on the ADH Dads website, and I can get you some resources. So thank you guys for listening. Until next time, this has been the ADH Dads. I'm your host, CJ.
I'm JJ.
And we'll see you next time.